welcome to episode 40 of the Ape and Bird NFT show, but we're going to have to rebrand it the Azuki and Bird show for today. We have a very, very special guest in wale.swoosh or wale.swoosh for episode 40 today. Wale, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I should say off the top with my Australian accent, and where are you coming from in the world? Somewhere in Europe?
Yeah, I'm from Europe. I'm from Germany. I was born in Germany. I live in both Germany and Switzerland right now. So you might hear a German accent.
Lovely, lovely. And whale or wale? Because someone said last night at an event I was at, they said, no, you got to pronounce it wale. And I said, no, I'm pretty sure it's whale. So can we just confirm it's whale?
It's whale, yeah. That's a question I get a lot. Like every time I'm on spaces and people talk to me, they always ask, is it whale or wale? Because I think in the United States there's a rapper called Wale, so people kind of associate my name with that. But it's wale.swoosh.
Wale.swoosh, welcome to the show. Let's get into it. I mean, when we set this interview up a couple of days ago, I shot you some notes and sort of said, okay, NFTs, is sentiment starting to turn around? Market's not too bad. In the last sort of 4 or 5 hours, probably since the time you woke up, you've seen nothing but red.
Yep.
We've seen some altcoins that are down 30+%. It has been an absolute bloodbath. So thanks for joining us. But have you been able to reconcile it all? It's early in the morning for you right now, but as you've woken up and just seen a pool of red.
Yeah, I was just waking up, was getting ready for my GM tweet that I do every morning. And then I checked the markets and saw like ApeCoin down 30%, Polygon down pretty much, as you said, like every altcoin. I think this has something to do with the SEC investigation with Coinbase and Binance. Even though I'm not like a legal expert, I think there's a lot of uncertainty around that right now. And I read a tweet this morning, like, usually when altcoins are down, like ETH and Bitcoin are pretty stable, like they are down too, but not close to what altcoins are down. Of course, it's normal like that altcoins react stronger than Bitcoin and ETH, but I think it's pretty extreme in this market right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, I think this time last year, I was at Consensus in Austin for that conference. And I can remember ETH, multiple days sort of nuking like 15 to 23% in a day. And for this current nuke, it definitely seems like Bitcoin and ETH are holding up a lot stronger. I mean, they normally hold up a lot stronger than alts, but it seems to be even more exacerbated on this particular one. So hold on to your hats. The ever-going roller coaster of crypto NFT land continues. But let's go back to NFTs, which is our wheelhouse, Wale. Outside of this nuke on coins, how have you felt about the NFT market, particularly in the last 2 or 3 weeks? Have you seen a somewhat of a sentiment shift? It sort of seems like floors bleeding out had just temporarily paused. Would you see it that way?
Yeah, I think in the last few weeks with ordinals coming up, I think we saw a lot more excitement in the general space because most people who trade ordinals come kind of from an NFT background or have traded NFTs in the past. So I saw like excitement coming back to the space as a whole. If you look at floor prices like Azuki is an example, or DGARDs, Captains, they pretty much like recovered too. I think they're all still up. I think Azuki was up at 17 ETH last time I checked. So certainly a sentiment shift. Of course, June has a lot of exciting events for NFTs too. If you think of the Azuki event in Las Vegas or DGARD Season 3, Utes 2, the Ether mint at the end of the month. So I think there's some excitement coming back. It will be interesting to see how like this blood in the market right now in crypto in general will affect floor prices. Usually NFTs are strong when crypto is pretty stable, right? So when there's not much movement in ETH, neither up or down, that's usually when NFTs are strong. And yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens when the market bleeds. Now, I think it's I think it will be okay for most ETH projects. I think for projects on these altcoins like Solana, I think they're in much deeper trouble, because when Solana goes down like 30%, there might be good deals also, because NFT value will follow, of course. So yeah, it's kind of sad because I felt like the market is slowly coming back, and now we have this macro issue. So it will be interesting how it plays out.
Yeah, I think it's somewhat seems like a false start, right? I was probably saying on the show a couple of weeks ago, I was starting to feel just a little bit more confident in the direction that we were heading. I think I used a phrase cautiously optimistic. But as you referred to, Whale, just then, when we've seen times of uh, ETH tanking or other coins tanking, NFTs generally follow suit. It's almost like a leverage play on ETH at times. So here's hoping that ETH stabilizes a little bit. But I should remind all of our listeners too, around about this time last year, ETH was actually sort of testing the 1K USD mark. So we're still well above there. So hopefully people can put that in perspective and know that, we have been here before. And for those that have been around NFTs and crypto a lot longer, have seen even single figures ETH. So you've got to put it all in perspective. But Whale, I did want to talk Bored Ape really quickly. Two particular things. You
Yep.
had a tweet earlier, I think a couple of days ago. It was essentially put some respect on the Mutant Ape Yacht Club's name. Can you tell the listeners what you meant by that?
Yeah, it was just like a reaction to stuff I saw on my timeline. Many people from projects like, I don't want to pick names like Captain Stigarts, but also Azuki. Like, I think it's not community specific, treating like, hey, we flipped mutants and stuff like that. And I always think like this flipping talk when it comes to floor prices, especially when it doesn't really make sense, because mutants is a 20K collection, and most of the projects who flip them in floor price are a 10K collection. So it doesn't really make sense in the first place. But yeah, I just, it was a reaction to a lot of this flipping talk I saw directed at Bored Ape Yacht Club and Mutant Ape Yacht Club. And I was never a big fan of this floor price comparison. And and to give people credit, like the 9gag CEO, the founder of Memeland and Captains, also said this to his community, like, we are not here to flip other projects. We want to do good for ourselves, and if we become like the top project, that's great, but we don't want to like put other people down by treating how we flip them and how we're now the next project. So that was just a reaction. I
Yeah,
basically said like, Body Club had a big impact on the space, and without Body Club, probably most of the projects and space in general would look completely different today. So that's why I said, let's respect them and let's stop this flipping talk.
absolutely. Now, I would say the flipping talk really started with the Bored Ape, so it's somewhat come full circle, hasn't it? I
Yep.
had a Bored Ape in the first sort of year, 13 months after mint. I didn't mint, but I bought very quickly off secondary. It was luck. I liked the name. I was just starting to get into NFTs around that sort of March, April, May period in 2021. And there was talk always of Bored Apes flipping crypto punks, and then punks would flip apes back, and it went back and forwards
Yep.
for a while. So I think there's always some form of just like banter or crypto Twitter nonsense that goes on, right? Obviously, between these projects, I joked to you in the DMs as we were teeing this show up that I've round tripped to Proof Pass and Moonbird. So there's been plenty of flip
Right.
talks that have gone my way and then not gone my way as well. So I agree with you, though. I'm a massive Yuga fan. I've still got some exposure to the ecosystem. I don't currently have a mutant, but yeah, I think I actually enjoyed your tweet. I think whether it's CryptoPunks or Bored Apes and Yuga, like these collections that really paved the way, like you say, for the new wave that are sort of sucking up all the oxygen and attention right now. And I do want to get into some of your tweets sort of around perpetual anticipation, etc., later in the show, because I think you're right. Tremendous tweets at times. So I'm really looking forward to getting into those. But I do want to ask you two specific questions. Actually, before I get onto Azuki, I did have one more Yuga question. I felt like I was seeing earlier in the week a little bit of noise around, is it going to be Yuga season? Because they've teased in classic Yuga style on the Bored Ape channel, which has over 1 million followers, the Forge or issue 3 Forge of the summoning. And it themed the 1 minute video themed a lot around the Kennel Club. And the Kennel Club is obviously the doggos have had the least amount of love, I would say, in the Yuga ecosystem, maybe except for
Yeah.
me bits. Did you have any takeaways from this particular video, or it was just sort of a classic Yuga teasing anticipation of what was coming?
I think it certainly was like a teasing of what is coming. I was surprised that it didn't move like floor prices as much. Like I think if the same tweet would have come out a few months ago, we could have easily saw like a significant pump in like Body Kennel Club floor price and heavy metal floor price. We didn't saw this time, so that's something that surprised me and made me think. But I think it could be like Yuga season soon. I think June might belong to the D-Gods and Utes and the Suki ecosystem, but I think the month after that, with probably more news from Yuga, maybe we'll see some other side news too. I think that could be
Abs-
really interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So getting onto Azuki, you're obviously deep in the Azuki ecosystem, and for any listeners that are not aware of your role, Whale, within the Azuki ecosystem, do you want to just paint that picture for our listeners really quickly?
Sure. Yeah. So I got started as a content creator in 2022, and kind of grew my following for about a little over a year now, and always was like part of the Azuki community. I didn't hold a Azuki all the time, but I always had either an Azuki or a Beans. So yeah, and I became like this content creator on Twitter and grew my following. And then in earlier this year, the Azuki co-founders Sagabond, Location TBA, and the them who is like the community manager for Beans, they all reached out to me in the DMs, and we talked like about our views on the space, about what's happening in the space. And yeah, then we kind of hopped on a call, and they offered me this research and residence position that they had offered to Elena, the other research and residence before me. And what it is basically like I'm now a kind of brand ambassador, brand representative for Azuki, since I changed my profile picture from a Clone X to an Azuki. I don't know if you remember, like my content and me before my Azuki profile picture. I had a Clone X. So all the content I do now, like my threads, my spaces, they are all kind of under the Azuki umbrella, because every time people read my threads or see me on spaces, to see this Azuki profile picture. So I think that's one part of it. And the other part is both Elena and me do reports exclusively for the team whenever they see something in the space or want some more info on that. And also like give them advice when it comes to sentiment on NFT Twitter. Because like the team, they run a $1 billion company. They don't have time to spend whole day on NFT Twitter. So whenever there's something happening, we discuss it with the team. So that's basically like this research and residence role, which Azuki kind of came up with. Like there was no such role in other communities before that.
And your time prior to March 2022, when you said you started to grow your current audience, which is well over 50,000 on Twitter now. Obviously, you get a really good engagement within all NFT communities, but particularly Azuki. Prior to that, what's your backstory? Sort of, were you in crypto for a few years before that? How long have you been playing around with NFTs?
I got into NFTs in early 2021 and started out as a trader. This was also kind of like the time when I got into crypto in general. Like I bought my first Ethereum back then, really to mint my first NFT. So it was really just buying Ethereum to use it to mint my first NFTs. And in the beginning, it was really just about making money. Like if you remember early 2021 and late 2021, was like the time where you could buy an or mint an NFT and flip it the next day or the next week for 2x, 3x, 5x. So that's what really got me excited about NFTs. And then later, as you said, like I joined NFT Twitter at first just to become a better trader, because I saw that stuff that happens on NFT Twitter also has an impact on floor prices and how that moves. So that was like kind of my first motivation to create a Twitter account, to kind of go into this NFT Twitter community. And I think that really caused me to fall in love with the community and with the space as a whole more. Like not only about money, but also like about community, the projects themselves. So that's how I kind of transitioned from this really day trader only about the money in 2021 to being more about community in early 2022.
Lovely. Azuki, as you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, it has bucked the trend of NFT floor prices just consistently bleeding down. I mean, we've seen projects. You mentioned CloneX. I obviously have Moonbirds. We've seen Doodles,
Yep.
Tank. We've seen VFriends as well. Cop it in the neck. The Captains, Utes, D-Gods, Pudgy Penguins have bucked the trend, but Azuki has really bucked the trend. It's been so strong in the face of this sort of NFT and broader crypto headwinds in this bear market. I mean, you always talk about anticipation, which I couldn't agree with more. And I think Azuki do a good job of teasing anticipation. But can you put your finger on the secret ingredient that has seen Azuki sort of turn around when the Zagabond FUD happened and we saw the floor sort of drop, I think, in the 6 range? And
Yep.
consistently it has continued to climb. Like, what is your take? What is the secret ingredient that Azuki's doing that other communities are not?
I think several things. Like you mentioned the Zagabond FUD in last year. And I think that really caused the community to bond together stronger, like to build stronger bonds within the community. Because if you remember, like I was on Twitter during the time, and there was a lot of criticism and hate, also not only directed as on the team, which I think was okay back then, like criticizing this is totally fine, but also like a lot of hate directed at the community and personal stuff directed at the team and team members. And I think that caused like the community to build really strong bonds. And I think that's something you still see today, that the community really is like, we have this saying in the Azuki community, which is strongest community, not gonna lie. And that really kind of comes from this FUD and this hard times that happened last year. So I think that's one of the things, but it can't be like the only reason, because there are many other strong communities out there which don't have like the great performance when it comes to floor price that we see in Azuki. So I think another thing is that the execution of Azuki, like whatever they did in the past 1.5 years since they minted, when it comes to the beans airdrop, when it comes to the events they did, when it comes to other stuff like the skateboard, golden skateboard auction, I think they just did a lot of stuff right and didn't give much opportunity for people to FUD them. Like I think that's a big problem we see in other projects, that sometimes the execution is not perfect, and then there's a lot of FUD, because that's what NFT Twitter likes to do, right? So that's, I think, is another reason. And then, of course, they've been smart about not to dilute their ecosystem too fast. Like they only did the Azuki Beans airdrop last year, and they've been pretty much building in the background. They had some smaller drops, the Twin Tigers jacket, so they've been rewarding people over time. But they're still, I personally, I feel like there's still much more to come for Azuki as a project, and I don't think that's something we see in many other projects. Like if you have done 10-20 drops already, at some point it's the ecosystem is kind of satisfied, right? There's not too much room to expand anymore. So I think that's something people see in Azuki too. Like there's a lot of room to grow and a lot of stuff that could come within the next few months, next few years. And I think the next big event is the event in Las Vegas, where people are looking forward to. That probably is the same for other projects that are doing well, like we have DGOD Season 3, which will happen this month. Meme Land Captains with the meme coin airdrop, right, which is also scheduled to happen in June, I think. So I think that's also one reason why we see this great performance in these projects, that there's an immediate I call it anticipation. Like there's people really looking forward to some stuff in the near future, so they want to invest now and want to get involved now. I think that's another reason why those projects are doing so well.
Will we be seeing you in the Vegas event for Azuki? Not that I'll be there personally, unfortunately, but are you planning on attending?
I try. I would love to come. It's a long flight from Germany. I can only stay 2 days, so it probably would be like 1 day flight to Las Vegas, then stay 1.5 days, and then 1 day flight back. But I would love to attend. Like, would love to meet the people there. But I haven't decided yet. I haven't booked my flights yet, and it's 2 weeks left. I think. Yeah, June 23 is the event, so I have to decide probably this weekend if I want to come or not.
Well, for some people, 1.5 days or nights in Vegas is probably too much. So
Right.
it might not be such a bad thing. Everyone loves a comeback story, Whale, and obviously Azuki have had their own comeback story that you've just alluded to there. Out of some of the other quote unquote former blue chips, let's call them, let's put on the table three projects in particular: Moonbirds, Doodles, CloneX. Out of those three, which three, if you just had to pick one, do you think has the potential for the strongest comeback story?
Great question. I think just when you look at the potential we saw back in last year and where we all thought the project would go, I think Moonbirds has a great opportunity, because if I guess you have Moonbirds purple pick, I guess you remember being a Blue Press holder and Moonbirds at 40 ETH, people thinking about we come back to flipping talk, like they might be a competition for Body Yacht Club. And so I think they really have, like, when it comes to where they come from when it comes to floor price and hype, I think they probably have the biggest room to grow and the biggest potential for or biggest runway for a comeback. I think, but I think all three projects have like solid foundations when it comes to Doodles. I think the stuff they're doing around the IP is pretty promising. Their time might come when more people decide to. Oh, I'm sorry. Cool. Yeah, I'm back.
Just
Sorry.
for our listeners. No, you're fine. Please continue.
Yeah, that's that stuff like Doodles with the IP. I think that's something that we might see have more positive impacts once people from outside of Web3 want to join and looking for projects to join, and they see, yeah, Doodles might be a good take. And CloneX also has like a great community. Of course, I was part of it for a long time. Great creators, so I think they also have the opportunity to kind of make a comeback.
Yeah, they're all three very different projects, aren't they? Sort of with different teams, different skill sets, and I think it's going to be quite interesting. So, as I laughed about though with you, I've definitely wrote a lot of Moonbirds and Proof Pass right up, right back down, but still holding on to a couple of things. So, still entrenched in those particular communities there. I want to talk Utes and DGODs. So they actually implemented something around Twitter where you went on and verified if you were a Utes or DGODs holder in the last week, and that would get you an automatic follow from the Utes and DGODs Twitter accounts, the official Twitter accounts, with the intentions I've read up on where you'll be able to do essentially what the Bored Apes made famous in 2021, Ape Follow Ape, which many communities have followed suit and put their own sort of spin on it to try to sort of follow fellow community members. But we've seen a lot of fake accounts spin up like that. So, you're often following people that are actually not in those communities that you think they are. What did you think of this? Frank's obviously always cooking something up. Is this something that you hope that you see more with other communities?
Yeah, I think the way that they did it was smart, because now you can actually verify like people the Utes account follows or DGAT account follows actually own a DGAT or Ute, right? Because I think Bored Ape is the best example. I get followed by probably more Bored Apes than there are Bored Ape Yacht Club profile pics, right? People have like they can call right click save their Bored Apes and put it on Twitter. And so I think Utes, what they did is smart, because you can now actually like go through the profile of the official Utes account and follow all the community members who actually own a Ute. So I think that's a great way to do it. And also utility, right? People always love to get followed by their projects. People always celebrate when Body Club follows them, or when Azukis follows them. So I think it's great that the official account, that they did it with the official account. And I think they are one of the first to implement it in this way. Personally, I didn't do it because I never connect my Twitter to any apps outside of Twitter, just because of a safety measure. But I think for the like normal use holder, I think that's a great way to do it. And yeah, just another example that's why I'm also bullish on Frank and the team. It's because they really understand what NFT Twitter is about. People would want to get followed by their projects, by their official accounts. So I think that's great way to achieve that.
Does Frank have the best pulse on NFT Twitter out of any other founder, in your opinion?
I wouldn't say the best, because there are other founders who have it too. I think he has a unique take on it. Like, I think he's the founder with the biggest global reach. I think he's the most active founder when it comes to NFT Twitter. So he's certainly like up there. The other founders who have a unique take on it. Sagabon from Azuki tweets less and also some kind of different content. He does more like this thought leader content, so really like one tweet a day or two tweets a day. But like with impact, Frank tweets a lot, and I really enjoy following him, interacting with his posts too. With other founders who have a whole different strategy when it comes to NFT Twitter. So I don't look at it as like the best and the worst. I think there are different ways you can interact as a founder. And but I do think like Frank is very smart about the way he does it, very smart about the way he um makes people hype about DGATs and Utes. So I think Frank is a big reason why Utes and DGATs are so successful, because as you said, like he understands NFT Twitter, he understands the dynamics of like the community dynamics. So I think that's really where he might be one of the best founders in the space.
Yeah, I agree. I remember listening to him quite some time ago now, actually, on the Proof podcast, and I've heard him on multiple spaces, and I always find him quite impressive. Just sort of a young, hungry hustler of a founder, and you do feel like I don't know hold any Utes or D gods right now, but certainly they're on the shopping list. So shout out to the Utes and D gods community. Let's talk about two new mints that happened in the last week, Wale. One of them was early this morning. I got up at 6:20 a.m. Australian time to mint. I have a end of Satoshi pass, and there was a new mint called Danks. I'm not sure if you're across this one, but ultimately it got botted. 16 odd thousand were minted across about 600 owners from a tweet that I saw. It was essentially a failed mint. Satoshi had to go out and sort of apologize and said he'll make things right. And then Danks have come out on their Twitter account just to sort of disassociate themselves a little bit with Satoshi and say it wasn't Satoshi's fault, it was our fault, etc. But
Right.
any sort of any high level thoughts on Danks with what happened this morning or yesterday for you?
To be honest, I totally miss it. Like it's the first time I hear of them. I that's why I can't give my take on it. Usually, I observe like the hype mints, but I missed this one.
Yeah, so I think this one caught my attention, obviously because of the narrative of Nakamigos, and the last end of Satoshi free mint was Nakamigos. So there
Yep.
was almost like, I wouldn't say as much anticipation as Nakamigos got, but there was certainly, it was bubbling along in a few group chats that I'm in. You know, people were talking about Danks and yeah, set the alarm to get up, and yeah, it was botted. So I don't think that's worked out very well for them. They set a 5% royalty on it, and you know the floor. I think about 20 minutes after mint got close to 0.03, maybe 0.025, but it's really
Right.
wound back down now. It's sort of like 0.01, under 0.01. So a little bit of a false start there for Danks, and for anyone hanging on that they thought there was going to be the next Nakamigos. I don't think that's going to
Right.
play out, unfortunately. But speaking of Nakamigos, and we won't spend too much longer on this particular segment, but Extreme Pixels, that was another one this time last
Yep.
week, so 7 days ago. That was somewhat had a Nakamigos feel to it, and Jonathan, you know, has a board ape who wrote a Medium article, and there was, you know, it seemed to be a little bit of substance behind the story. People got a little bit excited. I know I aped in a little bit, but that has retraced very, very quickly. Did you mint any whale? Were you across Extreme Pixels?
I did mint. I observed it because, like as you said, like it had like early Nakamigos vibes probably. I didn't get involved with Nakamigos with the original back then, so I didn't get involved here either. But I think it's always like good to keep track of these projects, because I talked about it when Nakamigos had their run too. Like every once in a while, there's one project that's really dominate the timeline, and I saw a lot of them on my timeline in the recent days. And it's always good
Yeah.
to observe it, and it because it shows a lot of and gives a lot of like background how the NFT market works when it comes to this short term hype cycles when everyone gets excited and then kind of flows back down. So it's always fun to observe these. I usually don't get involved unless I really either enjoy the art or think the team is capable of doing something. I didn't get involved this time.
Speaking of art, we have coming up this coming week with the Sotheby's 3AC liquidation sales of some Grails pieces. So, not to be confused with Proof Grails, but Sotheby's has gone with the same title, but the leading one in this particular auction set is Dmitry Cherniak's Ringers number
Yep.
879, aka the Goose. The current estimate for this NFT, even though we're deep in this bear market, is at $2 to $3 million USD. We also have a Tyler Hobbs for Denza. We have an archetype, and we have an autoglyph, autoglyph 218 by Lava Labs. Are you looking at these not necessarily to buy them, Whale, but are you looking at these just sort of out of interest, and sort of how do you see the art market holding up against the PFP market at this point in time?
Yeah. I'm super interested about the art side of NFTs. I think we saw this a few months ago, when profile pick, or yeah, maybe a little bit over a few months ago, like when the profile pick beer market really hit and profile picks hit an all time low. We saw art actually performing pretty decent when it comes to projects like Chromie Squiggles or Fidenza or stuff like that. So I'm looking at the auctions. I think it's not really representative on like the day to day of the NFT market, but it certainly gives like an insight how much demand there still is for these Grail art pieces. And I think we saw, like as you said, a lot of Fidenza sales in recent weeks and months for sometimes millions of dollars or several hundred thousand of dollars. So I think that still
Abs-
gives a good indicator on how people think about the market, NFTs in general, maybe more like the NFT art market. And I've always been a big fan of ringers. I think it's one of the best NFT art projects, certainly from the art blogs under the art blogs umbrella. So I'm bullish on that. And I think this, what is it called, Golden Goose?
The goose, just the goose.
Goose, yeah, Goose. I think
Yeah.
that's one really a grail piece, and I'm excited to see how it will go.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck to any bidders out there. All right, I
Yeah.
want to get on to another segment, Wale. I want to talk about some iconic brands that have made some new announcements or some new Web3 plays in the last sort of 7 to 14 days, starting with Louis Vuitton. Um, were you across what Louis Vuitton announced earlier this week?
I saw a lot of tweets about it this morning. Like people got excited that they got in, but I'm not familiar like what they announced.
Okay, so I'm gonna read off their website here. Amid a quiet year on the this is I should say on Vogue.com. Amid a quiet year on the Web3 front, Louis Vuitton is getting further into the NFT game. Today, the brand is announcing a new collection, and they are going to use the term here, Wale, phygital. I know that that's quite polarizing for some people. They're calling this project Treasure Trunks, which will
Right.
allow grant or which will grant access owners access to futures and experiences, as well as a community of fellow holders. Here's the punchline, though: each piece costs $39,000 euro. Will you be a buyer, Wale, at
Jeez.
$39,000 euro?
Jesus, that's a lot. Like, good luck finding a lot. Like, I don't think will have problems finding buyers. Think there are still people in the space who want to spend their money, but I probably won't mint this one for 40 grand.
Yeah, I think look, they've gone on to say that there'll only be a several hundred trunks made available. So they actually have been vague on not actually giving a number at this point in time, just saying several hundred. But to me, this is sort of the power of brand, right? So we've seen luxury brands and even sort of sneaker brands like Nike and Adidas and Puma that are having their moments, or Adidas for our European and American listeners. But I think it's sort of like an extension of your product line, right? We're seeing for the first time in history, we're seeing a digital extension of luxury brands. And so for me, Louis Vuitton doing it this way, I mean, if they came in with the price too low, I think, you know, all those years of building up brand equity could potentially be hurt a little bit. So the price, whilst it's very, very high, and I will not be minting or considering minting myself either, I do actually sort of think the price is right in a funny but weird way, because
Yep.
this is a luxury brand that targets high net worth individuals or people that want to spend on luxury goods. So it is interesting, though. I think it's further validation that NFTs are here to stay. Digital assets and digital objects are here to stay. It's just that we might have been talking about the wrong ones for the last couple of years, with a lot of those that are going to go to zero. One other project I wanted to talk about, or two other projects I wanted to talk about. Mercedes. So Mercedes seem to have come in, where we've seen many brands that have sort of come in an awkward fashion. You know, Porsche copped a lot of FUD a few months ago. We've seen
Yep.
brands that have sort of come in and sort of more like a cash grab and an extraction, first enter Web3. But Mercedes seem like they've got a couple of people behind the scenes that are degens or that do understand the Web3 space. And they've actually looked to partner with artists, and they're almost like creating these artworks that are under the Mercedes sort of themed and brand umbrella. Have you seen Mercedes? Like, I know they've sold out their initial collections, but have you seen this, and do you have any thoughts on the way that they've dipped their toe into Web3?
Yeah, I think it's a unique take on it to do it with like generative art and to feature artists. So I think that's will be interesting to see how it plays out. I wasn't a big fan of the Porsche NFT drop back then. Also comes down to what you said about Louis Vuitton. I think it makes sense for them to as you said, like to make a very limited amount of NFTs at high prices. Porsche kind of didn't do it really well, in my opinion, back then, having this big collection size and still minting for, I don't know, what was the mint price, 1 ETH or above 1 ETH,
Yeah.
something around that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So will be interesting. I think Mercedes has a unique take on it, and I think both Mercedes and Louis Vuitton, I have respect for them because they are joining the market in a time where there's not a lot of hype around NFTs. As you know, it's a beer market, so I have much more respect for them doing it now than for all the brands that came in during the last bull market when everyone was hyped about NFTs and wanted to like join the market. So them joining in this market, in this market condition, I think it's a great sign, and I think that also like gains the brands way more respect than if they would have joined like during the bull market and just went for a quick cash grab. So really excited for both of these mints, even though I probably won't get involved with Louis Vuitton. I might get involved with the Mercedes drop, but we'll have to like check out the dynamics of the drop first.
Absolutely. Last one on the brand side, dot swoosh and Nike, EA Sports. That announcement happened within sort of the last 7 to 8 days. This one, as a former player of EA Sports games growing up, Madden, NBA Live back in the day, got me really excited about sort of all the possibilities. Like, will I own a pair of digital sneakers that then I can take into EA Sports and put it on my custom avatar in, an NBA basketball game? The possibilities that I think that we've all been thinking about with, interoperability of digital assets across games and things like that. It seems like that sort of concept is starting to just feel and taste a little bit more tangible. What
Yep.
is your take on sort of the latest news with Nike and EA Sports, and has it got you excited?
It got me really excited. Like I've been a FIFA player for a long time. Like love to play it when I was younger. And recently with NFTs, I thought like how great would it be if for the people who'd never played FIFA before, like you can trade Ultimate Team, you can trade players. Usually the currency within the ecosystem is like these FIFA points, which we have to buy with fiat money. So if maybe the NFT integration with that swoosh, where you can, I think at first it's just like shoes that you can get during do on the .swoosh website, and that will also show up in the game. So, but if maybe that evolves long term into more NFTs or tradable in-game assets within the EA ecosystem, like in their games, I think it would be a great sign for NFTs, because I think gaming is one of the big areas where you could see a lot of growth when it comes to NFTs, because that's one of the places where it really makes sense to me. So I think that swoosh and Nike working with FIFA there and with EA Sports there is a great first step.
Couldn't agree more. And I think I saw the movie Air a couple of weeks ago, Whale, and I was a big basketball fan, and I grew up in the 90s era when Michael Jordan was essentially the most famous athlete on the planet. And that story of how essentially Nike transitioned from being, really a very small shoe company compared to Converse and Adidas at the time. I actually think we're living through a moment in history where we're going to see another movie in another, whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, I don't know, or some type of significant Netflix series or whatever it might be. And I think the plays that Nike are doing now, I think are actually the beginning and the hallmarks of the next great wave of them just being a dominant player in digital
Yep.
fashion and digital items as a brand. They have been dominant in physical goods and having just such strong brand equity across all sports in the world. And I do think we're living through that moment at the moment. I want to give a tip of the hat to an Australian friend of mine who I know is actually working behind the scenes on that project. I'm not going to say who it is, but I also want to give a tip of the
Interesting.
hat to Secure D, who has been calling this. Secure has been on the podcast before, Wale. He's an artist. He designs custom sneakers, and he's been calling this with Nike, I would say, for over 6 months. He got me super excited about it. I was already a little excited, but he sort of amped me up. And now I see some of the things that are starting to bubble along, including this EA Sports announcement. And I just think it's really, really fascinating. And I do think we're living in the early moments. And that's why I bring up the movie Air, because I do think we're in that sort of period right now where those type of boardroom discussions where they're about to sign Jordan to a sneaker contract, that feels like that's sort of that moment that's happening right now. So shout out to Nike and all the Nike heads out there.
Shout out to them. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope it's this cultural moment where we see more not only like more games within EA Sports, but also other companies, gaming companies, kind of incorporate this. I think it would be a great way to also maybe bring some excitement back to the NFT market.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we want to get on to a section of this show now, a segment of this show that goes a little bit deeper into some of the brilliant threads that you write, that gets everyone thinking, high engagement on these. But obviously, you tweet a lot. You've grown this brand. You do a lot of threads. I enjoy your threads. They're pretty easy to read. They're not too long most of the time. Two in particular I wanted to talk about today. One was taking a walk down memory lane of the biggest oof trades. So if I just bring up this Twitter thread, and I thought this was really well done as I just fumble around trying to open this in a new window so I can still see. Okay, so I want to start off. So you've written this all-star compilation. Here are the biggest oof trades in NFT history. Mechaverse, starting with number one, Mechaverse. Someone paying 500 ETH for the number one rarity for the next BAYC collection. The problem was it doesn't become BAYC. Right. Did you feel for the buyers in some of these cases as you were writing this thread? Because there were some big winners and some big losers out of this particular thread.
Yeah, it was a fun thread. I usually Sundays I always like to do less serious threads, either funny or kind of looking back at history. And I think we all have some trades where we wish we would have bought like earlier or sold earlier, sold later, hold a little bit longer. And the oof trades are like the ones I featured are the most extreme ones that I found. Like as I said, like someone paying 500 ETH for Mechaverse after the reveal. I think we had someone who sold his autoglyphs at 1.2 ETH or 0.8 ETH, and I think we mentioned earlier, like today they're selling for a couple $100,000 of dollars. I don't know which other we had in the comments. We had many people sharing the oof trades too. We had Osef, the artist behind Wrecked Guy, great dude, and he shared like a screenshot or a slideshow basically of all the Bored Apes he paper-handed for between 0.5 and 1.5 ETH, and it goes on like for 30 seconds, and he's just scrolling through. So I think we all have like some big misses, but it was fun to not only do some research on some big fumbles, but also to read the comments and see that we all have some stories when it comes to oof trades, and some are more extreme than others.
Yeah, I would say I've had a few oof trades, but one in particular I'd actually forgot about until last night. I was at a Web3 event here in Melbourne, Australia, at a place called Upside DAO. And we had a presentation from someone that spends a lot of time. She's Aussie, doing a presentation around crypto and things happening in Dubai, all things Web3. And I remember this story. I have two VeeFriends that I minted in May 2021. And I can't remember what month it was. It would have been maybe around November or December of 2021. So we were still in peak NFT euphoria. And I have an Alert Ape core, which is, there's 20 of those. So it's not a rare one. Yep. The character wise, because VeeFriends isn't interesting and sophisticated. Well, when I say interesting, it's a character-based NFT project opposed to many PFP projects that are more trait-based, right? So the Alert Ape, I would say, is probably a top 20 or 30 character, I would like to think, in the VFriends sort of community. And I've never listed mine, but a VFriends, the same one that I had, went for, I think it was 40 ETH, 30 or 40 ETH. And someone actually bought it, but they could have had they could have had a rare one, which was listed at 10 ETH less. So it was obviously an uneducated buyer who's bought the less rare one for 10 additional ETH. And then I remember I went to dinner that night and I was telling my friends, this particular V friend, because they knew who Gary V was. And I said, yeah, this one went for like 30 or 40 ETH. And they said, you're going to sell yours? That's a lot of money. And I said, no, I'm keeping on to that. That's going higher. Well, we know what happened with that. So that's probably one of my big oof trades is to just, that coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah, I think my biggest oof trade is I watched the Azuki mint back then, and I wanted to mint, like, it was, for me, it was obvious that they would do well. I wanted to see, it was a Dutch auction, and I wanted to see it drop like at least 0.1 or 0.2 or 0.3 before I minted. And of course, it sold out like in 1 minute or 30 seconds. And my biggest oof trade is first of all, not minting, and then not buying before the reveal, because I was kind of used to projects dropping in floor price after the reveal. So I thought, like, no rush there. But of course, it really pumped after the reveal. So that's one of my biggest oof trades. I was too focused on other projects during that time. So that's,
And,
one of my biggest should have. Yeah.
and one of the only projects too that bucked the trend, Azuki, of pumping after reveal. I mean, we nearly
And
always
also,
see a post reveal dump.
yeah, and also pumping after airdrop. Like, if you remember the beans airdrop, usually it's like in the anticipation of the airdrop, projects pump, and then after the airdrop, which makes usually sense. Like, floor price goes down. But yeah, Zuki broke the trend 2 times after reveal, and also once they did their check your wallet airdrop of the 2 beans. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why Azuki is really special.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, as we start to wrap up the show, I do want to talk about one other particular thread because I thought it was a really well-written thread. But I want to pick your brain and sort of talk about, this thread that you wrote on perpetual anticipation. The reason why some NFT projects keep winning, and some of these projects, or all of them, we've spoke about tonight on this show, or for the morning for you. D-Gods and Utes, Azuki, the captains. So you talk about this perpetual anticipation in this thread that you wrote on June 2nd. So last week, you talk about NFTs being an attention game, and anticipation is what feeds attention, but many projects neglect this. And I think some of the projects that we spoke about earlier on the show, including Doodles and CloneX and Moonbirds, probably do fit into this category, and it's probably reflected in their floor price. My question to you is, if NFTs are an attention game, particularly in the PFP space, which I do agree with, what is the end game if it's perpetual anticipation? Like, do we get to the end of the road for some of these projects at some point, or do we just constantly have to have a stream of announcements, which really Yuga sort of set the gold standard in 2021 and has continued to do, but they've got obviously a lot of collections under their umbrella now.
Great question. Yeah, the point I was trying to make with the thread is that most people who buy NFTs and trade NFTs always want something to look forward to. I think for Azuki, it's the Las Vegas event. For D-Gods, is D-Gods season 3, which was teased for like half a year. For Captains, it's the meme airdrop and other stuff they've planned. So that was kind of the main point, that the projects that are really doing well right now have something the holders can look forward to and gives them a reason to hold on the one hand, but also gives other people a reason to buy now instead of just waiting. Because there are certainly projects, without naming names, where you think about why buying now if there's nothing happening for the next 2 months, 3 months. so you can just wait. And I think that's especially true in the beer market, where most people like to be liquid, have either some ETH or some US dollar coin at the side. So that's the reason. When it comes to endgame, it's a hard question. I think from where I'm at now and from how I'm looking at the space now, I think profile pick projects, and so if it's not about art, I think art doesn't need it. But I think when it comes to profile picks, I think we all always want something to look forward to. I don't think we will, outside of the really grail collections, we like CryptoPunks, for example, which is also less about utility and kind of more about art. I think they always will need some excitement, some yes, some kind of roadmap where people see the project go.
Yep.
Unless they really become sooner or later something like a even more status symbol. I think we kind of saw it in the last bull market where all these celebrities were buying Bored Apes and CryptoPunks, and for them it certainly was less about like will Bored Ape Yacht Club kind of I don't know um, start the mini game or stuff like that. For them it was more like a status symbol. So if we move in that direction for the top collections, they might be less dependent on announcement and stuff like that. But I think for most projects, certainly for the projects outside of the top 5, top 10, I think they will continue to be highly dependent on hype, on excitement, on anticipation. I don't think it. I don't think they will be able to reach kind of this end game state where they don't have to entertain the holders anymore.
Yep. Okay, as we round out, I want to give a big shout out to an Australian artist named Naya, aka Nayaverse, who had a drop on Foundation in the last 48 hours. It went really well. Naya is a just flat out amazing artist. I got some alpha from Terrell Jones when I did an article on Terrell on Cointelegraph back in February, and I've been paying attention to Naya's work. I love it, and I just wanted to give a big special shout out to our local artists there. I also wanted to ask you, Wale, your favorite NFT in your wallet outside of your current PFP Azuki.
Great question. I think it's probably the Utes I bought immediately once they migrated to from Solana to Polygon. I think it was a third buyer of a Ute on Polygon. So that's probably the NFT I cherish the most.
And anything on your shopping list, if you had to name 2 or 3 NFTs that you could buy or that you've got your eye on, that you're sort of checking or semi-checking their floor price at the moment?
Yeah, I want to get back into the Bored Ape Yacht Club ecosystem. So either, yeah, I think a mutant could be next for me. I've been wanting to get one. I owned one or several ones in the past. I don't own one now, so I might get back into that. And also, yeah, either hmm, captains is something I wanted to go in. I saw them at like 4 ETH, 3 ETH, but didn't pull the trigger. So I have kind of regret about that. But also Apache Penguins is also something like a Genesis Apache Penguin would also be a great purchase. So I think those 3 projects are something I'm really excited about right now.
Amazing. And last question, what has got you the most excited about NFTs as we look to the back half of this year? I know that's a tricky question given that we're so in the red in crypto as we're recording right now. But what's captured your imagination, or what do you think is going to capture your imagination in the back half of 2023?
Yeah, I think the thing that played the biggest role also in my personal Web3 career is really not about individual projects, but really about the general Web3 community, which is still strong even though in this bull market, there are still a lot of people engaged on NFT Twitter looking to engage with content. So I think that's something I will continue to be bullish on the people that are in the space, whether they are building or just here to support projects, to be part of the community. So yeah, that's what I'm probably the most bullish on.
Amazing. Okay, just a couple of little things as we wrap up. Our regular disclaimer, today's show has not been financial advice. It never is and never will be. This show is
Yep.
for entertainment and informational purposes only. I did want to give a quick shout out to the Australian Web3 community. If you are interested in joining a co-working space where you'll be mingling with other people working in Web3, we have an expression of interest form for Upside, where I'm doing a couple of days a week out of at the moment. So if you go to my Twitter, I'm sure you'll be able to find the link to the type form there. And we also have an event coming up. Well, I think it's actually on the same day, or very close to the Azuki Vegas party, but here in Australia, in conjunction with Chainalysis and Australian Blockchain Week, there is what is being called a NFT treasure hunt, which is going to be using Chainalysis's tooling to hunt down essentially a stolen NFT. So, Wale, I'm sure you've seen plenty of times when someone gets hacked or an NFT gets stolen, and people are trying to backtrack and see where it's been, whether it's been dumped into a blur bid, or how that crypto potentially has been off ramped and where. So we'll be going through a live example during Australian Blockchain Week. So if you're interested in that, that is a free event. Go to blockchainweek.com.au for that. And Wale, just lastly, for anyone that's not currently following you on Twitter, your handle is
wale.swoosh.
wale.swoosh. Well, thank you
Yes,
so
sir.
much for joining us. This has been a fantastic conversation, Wale. And sorry for getting the times mixed up on our recording time too. I rugged you an hour, but I appreciate you taking the time to join us on the show today.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me. Great show. Yeah, thank you for having me, and keep crushing it.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye bye.